From NBC News, Decision 92 Election Night, here are Tom Brokaw and Bryant Gumbel.
Good evening once again. I'm back here with Bryant Gumbel, and Bryant, at this hour, Bill Clinton is closing in very rapidly on the magic number of 270 electoral votes. In 1960, John Kennedy said a torch was passed to a new generation. Tonight, it's a whole bonfire. That's the way the electoral map is going. We want to show you what's going on in Little Rock at this hour. In the capital of Arkansas, they're beginning to assemble there. We expect that Bill Clinton and Hillary, sometime in the next hour, will probably make an appearance, because at about that time that we'll be able to make a projection. We'll remind you, however, that the polls are open in many parts of the country. If they are in your state, we urge you to go out and exercise your right to vote. The electoral vote, of course, is based on the representatives and the senators from those states, and that's how they get to the total. Here are the states in which the polls have just now closed at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. 99 electoral votes altogether: Arizona, Colorado, Louisiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And George Bush had to have a good chunk of those states to stay competitive tonight. And the fact of the matter is, he is not getting them. We're now prepared to make more projections for Bill Clinton that will take him close to the 270 marker. He is the projected winner in New York, no surprise there. 33 electoral votes. That's one of Clinton's most important states. It stayed rock solid for him. Minnesota has been in the Democratic column. 10 electoral votes there. Bill Clinton is the winner there as well. It voted for Michael Dukakis last time around. Here's a winner in the Rocky Mountain states. Colorado, 8 electoral votes. Perot was a big factor, taking away from George Bush. And now let's go to New Mexico. 5 electoral votes in New Mexico. Last voted Democratic in 1964. It had gone with the winner every time but once since becoming a state 80 years ago. It went with Gerald Ford in 1976. Rhode Island, only 4 electoral votes. They all go to Bill Clinton at this hour. And the state of Delaware, which has been another one of those bellwether states, voting with the winner every time since 1952. Tonight, it believes that the winner will be Bill Clinton. It has given him 3 electoral votes. So as we show you on the map now, all of those states will go red for Bill Clinton. The blue states belong to George Bush. What does that mean in terms of what's happening for George Bush? Well, he can win one state that we can put into his column at the closing at 9 o'clock now, and that is the state of Nebraska with its 5 electoral votes. Nebraska last voted Democratic in 64 for Lyndon Johnson. Here it is in the map now. The blue belongs to George Bush, of course. All the red red parts of the map will go to Bill Clinton. The electoral vote, we're now 238 electoral votes. As you can see, 270 are required. Bill Clinton now is within easy reach. There are some big states that are still out there that he is very much in the hunt for. John Chancellor, this could be a historic evening for Bill Clinton.
Well, it's going to be a historic evening, I think, in the history of covering elections. You know, this is quite early for something going as quickly as this. As rushing across the country, the way the Clinton vote is. In 1960, we weren't able here at NBC to call Jack Kennedy's election until around 11 in the morning, as I recall. And we were up all night. Now, it seems to me, within about the next half hour or so, Tom, you'll be able to project our winner as Bill Clinton. And there are a number of small states that could do it. Do we suppose that Texas could do it? I think that all by itself could do it. But I'm not sure he's going to carry Texas.
You know, John, the fact of the matter is that one of the things that served him very well in the course of this campaign, whatever you think about his ideological beliefs or his plan for the future, is that as a stand-up campaigner and politician, he is almost matchless. They knocked him bloody a couple of times here in the New York primary, again in New Hampshire with the Jennifer Flowers episode, but he was the Energizer Rabbit of presidential politics. He just kept on coming, and they could not knock him over.
Tom, his body was identified as dead on arrival in the New Hampshire primary, and he got up from that grave and moved on to where he is tonight. It's quite a remarkable story.
He so loves campaigning that at the end, the reporters were yelling at him at 2 in the morning, "Get back in the car, get back in the car." He would not stop shaking hands.
He, in fact, didn't get back to Little Rock until, I think, 11 o'clock this morning. His day started with a rally at Stapleton Airport in Denver, and then he moved on to Little Rock only after that. One of the stories that John is going to be exploring a little bit later, I'm sure, is the relationship that Bill Clinton, if the numbers continue to go his way, is likely to have with the 103rd Congress. That Congress, at least on the Senate Senate side is looking very much like the 102nd, because we can now make it 13-13 for incumbents on the Senate side. We have some more projections. Starting in Colorado, where Ben Nighthorse Campbell has won the vacant seat, turning back Terry Considine, a Colorado state senator. Interesting in this race, Campbell becoming the only Native American elected to the Senate. In this race, their military records were partly an issue. Campbell did not correct the misimpression that he had somehow been captured behind enemy lines in Korea. Considine perhaps could have capitalized on it, but he had his own problems by saying he was first ineligible to serve in Vietnam and then later had to confess that he sought and received a student deferment. Campbell the winner in Colorado. In Arizona, John McCain wins a second term, turning back the challenge not only of Clara Sargent, but also ex-Governor Evan Meekin. Although McCain was tainted somewhat by the SNL reprimand as one of the Keating Five, he wins handily in Arizona. And in South Dakota, Tom Daschle has defeated Charlene Harr. Daschle, a Democrat, defeated the only woman Republican who was running.
From NBC News, Decision 92 Election Night, here are Tom Brokaw and Bryant Gumbel.
Good evening. We're back in the capital of Arkansas tonight. We want to show you the scene as they await the arrival of their governor, the new president of the United States, that is Bill Clinton. There's an enormous crowd outside the state capitol, and Bill Clinton is the projected next president of the United States by all accounts. We want to tell you, first of all, well, we're going to see it or not. Oh, we're not going to see it. Well, we know that he's there, and we will be very shortly. Let us show you, first of all, the electoral vote. 270 required to win, 362 for Bill Clinton, 80 for George Bush, and so far none for Ross Perot. This is the national vote now, with almost two-thirds in. A 5-point lead for Bill Clinton over George Bush. Ross Perot holding at 18% of the vote. And that's been the margin throughout most of the polls are closed in these states, but we still cannot call them. It includes Montana and Wyoming. Big surprise in Wyoming. Should have been an easy, safe state for George Bush. Look down there in Arizona, also his home state of Texas. Still can't make a call. North Carolina and Florida. A lot of electoral votes there and a lot of popular votes at stake as well. So that's the situation as we await the presence of Bill Clinton tonight in Little Rock, Arkansas. John Chancellor, we have been concentrating on domestic problems, especially the economy and the challenges before the President of the United States. But as this country has been consumed by those difficulties and this national presidential campaign, in Russia, Boris Yeltsin has major problems. They've got civil war breaking out all across the southern republics. You've got a national emergency about to be declared in Germany. You've got all kinds of economic problems in Tokyo and throughout Western Europe. There's a huge foreign policy agenda in play here as well.
I think that, I'm not alone in this, that the trouble in what used to be the Soviet Union may happen before January the 20th. And that will be the last thing that may happen on George Bush's watch, the foreign policy expert. And I'm pretty sure that Bill Clinton would do the constitutional, but also the political thing, and not get involved in that. At the same time, you're absolutely right. You didn't mention this huge agreement on world trade that's been stalling around, the GATT agreement. And if that falls apart, we are going to have hair-curling recessions in a lot of the exporting countries. So that the new president is going to have a very full plate in terms of foreign policy measures. Even little Slovakia, one of the 25 new countries that we've all got to learn about, is now damming the Danube and infuriating everybody in Central Europe. It just goes on and on.
To say nothing of the continuing tragedy of Bosnia.
Do you get the impression, any of us, that there has been an uptick in world problems outside of this country because we've been so preoccupied with our own here at home? No. I don't make that as a political accusation, but it did happen while we were consumed with our own election.
Well, I think it's the natural outgrowth of the profound realignment of borders and ideologies and changes that have occurred in the last 4 years. Realignment of really, truly historic proportions, not just because it happened on our watch, but we've seldom been through anything like this in which the world really was just taken and shaken upside down. and the pieces fell back into place where warring tribes were butted up against each other once again in the latter part of the 20th century.
The Cold War didn't end with a bang. It didn't end with a whimper. It ended with a hell of a mess.
Yeah, it sure did. Okay. Brian Gumbel.
All right, Tom, let's try to give you some more Senate projections. We have two more to report on from Alaska and Idaho, and both of them going the Republicans' way. In Alaska, Frank Murkowski, the incumbent, won a third term. He turned back the challenge of Tony Smith, who was the state commissioner of commerce. Murkowski goes back to the Senate, and Dirk Kempthorne wins in Idaho. The mayor of Boise, he defeats Congressman Richard Stallings in a race that was expected to be close and was, but that brings the Republican total in the Senate up to 38. The Democrats are still at 58, and as you consider where they might still get to the magic number of 60, let's look at the races that are outstanding in New York. Alphonse D'Amato continues to cling to a very slight lead with 83% of the vote in. This one is still too close to call in his race with Attorney General Robert Abrams. Up in Oregon, a race that is also extremely close. Bob Peckwood trying to turn back Les O'Coin in a race that's been very nasty. Just 23% of the vote counted there. In New Hampshire, one that we've been watching all evening, but is still too close to call, separated now, as you can see, by just 7,000 votes. The governor, Judd Gregg, is trying to defeat John Rao, Professor John Rao, and there is one other race in Utah, that for the vacant seat, Jake Garn's seat. Republican Bob Bennett there is up against Wayne Owens. Democrats still seeking two more seats in order to give them a filibuster-proof 60. And Tom, just to correct myself with something I said a little bit earlier, I had noted that George Wallace Jr. had won his seat in Alabama. He has not. He has been defeated.
There's certain symmetry to this John business. You began the evening by calling
I
me
know.
John, and you're ending the evening.
No, I start off each day with it, Tom. That's all right.
Okay.
We're past midnight.
Yeah, right. John Chancellor weighing in with the idea that it's a wonderful name. I agree with him on that. As a matter of fact, it's my middle name, John. Let's take a look now at the race for governor in the state of Washington. We can make a projection there. The Democrats hold the seat. Governor Lowry is elected in the state of Washington. In North Dakota, the Republicans gain a seat. Governor Schaefer is the new governor in North Dakota. He replaces one of my favorite governors in the country for his name alone. George Sinner was the governor out there, but he is retired. In Rhode Island, a man who's been through a lot, a former broadcasting executive for an NBC affiliate, Bruce Sutherland is re-elected in Rhode Island. The Democrats will hold the seat. We'll be back with more, and we do expect to see Bill Clinton, now that he's been elected president of the United States, the moment that he's been waiting for. We can't understand why he's keeping us waiting. We'll see after this.
Decision 92 Election Night is being sponsored in part by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? It's more than a question. It's an answer. And by AT&T 800 service, because every call is a customer.
Here are two television pictures that tell it all tonight. This is in Houston, Texas, at President Bush's campaign headquarters. The Bush quail sign being removed as he is being removed from the White House by Bill Clinton. And this is the scene in Little Rock, the capital of Arkansas. The flags festooning the Capitol stage, awaiting the arrival of the governor, his wife, their daughter Chelsea, the new Vice President of the United States, Senator Al Gore of Tennessee, his wife Tipper, and their children. Some 40,000 people there altogether. Live at the old State House in Little Rock, Arkansas, on what Andrea Mitchell says is a very cold night down there, some 25 or 30 degrees, she would guess, claiming that she's no Willard, but then Willard wouldn't know either.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us all join together.
We want to remind our affiliated stations along the line that we'll be staying with this scene right through. We don't want to miss the President-elect of the United States, Bill
Tom
Clinton.
Brokaw, Bill Clinton's being introduced right now.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Very dramatic entrance. 12:20 in the morning, Wednesday, 11:21 in Little Rock, Arkansas. The new President of the United States, his wife Hillary, their daughter Chelsea. a formidable political marriage. The first decision that Bill Clinton made after getting the nomination, securing it, was to select this man as his vice president, and it was one of the best decisions that he could have made, it turns out. They were more than the sum of their parts. Tipper Gore and Hillary Clinton were a natural team as well. And they introduced a new style to American presidential politics, two young men who went to the old-fashioned bus and captured the fancy of the country. Both couples have lived virtually all of their married life in politics. Al Gore, born in Washington, D.C., the son of a distinguished senator, served in Congress after having served in Vietnam. Bill Clinton and Hillary met at Yale Law School. He persuaded her to come to Arkansas and join him there. They both taught at the University of Arkansas Law School, and then he began his political career, running first unsuccessfully for Congress, then successfully for Attorney General, then elected governor at the age of 34, defeated, and then returning to be elected altogether 5 terms. Now in his home state, he stands before them, the President-elect of the United States, the 42nd.
My fellow Americans, on this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning. This election is a clarion call for our country to face the challenges of the end of the Cold War and the beginning of the next century. To restore growth to our country and opportunity to our people. To empower our own people so that they can take more responsibility for their own lives. To face problems too long ignored, from AIDS to the environment, to the conversion of our economy from a defense to a domestic economic giant. And perhaps most important of all, to bring our people together as never before so that our diversity